and get off if you want. It's fine too. If you just want to, discuss this.
Okay.
Because we'll start with this right off.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, so it's up to you, whatever you have to do. But we'd love to have you. You can hang out and whatever. It's awesome. We'll start here though. So let's Mike, are you getting us now in delay form? Mike's having Mike has a power outage at his house. Mike. All right, Mike's not joining us yet. Okay, we'll wait on that. So let's just start with us. Let's go with Ty, and then so introduce Ty, then Josh, and then I'll introduce Pete. Okay.
Sounds good. Got it.
Should I go Peter or Pete? Peter.
Okay. Pete's fine.
Should it be Peter Tessier or Pete Tessier? What should you do?
Peter.
Fine. Cool. Awesome. All right, here we go. It is the sixth. Thanks. Oh God. All right. Friday, February 6th. I know it's Friday. All right, here we go. Hey, Hockey World, how you doing? It's Friday, February 6th, 2015.
I'm Ty Anderson.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. We are also joined now, as we do our introductions, by Mr. Kevin Allen of the USA Today Sports. Hello, Kevin.
Hello.
Good. Thanks for jumping in. And also, we are joined for the top of the show here by Peter Tessier, who is Peter's our Hockey Buzz blogger for Winnipeg, and I thought it was the right time to have a man out from Winnipeg on the show. And Peter, you've been on top of this whole thing too. All right, so what's the latest? What are your thoughts on it? You've got the floor.
Where to begin? It's kind of a tough one. I mean, we just found out that Evander Kane elected for shoulder surgery. He's going to be out 4 to 6 months, which means we should begin talking about Kane again and where he's going to end up sometime in July. I mean, the story as it's unfolded is rather fascinating, and I can't recall in recent memory when anything like this has happened with an NHL team. It's bizarre, and what we're dealing with, I think, is uncharted territory, and certainly for this management group. I don't think Kevin Cheveldayoff in his wildest dreams, 4 years ago, felt this is how the Evander Kane situation would unfold. Not particularly after he extended him at a very reasonable, $5.5 million over cap hit over 6 years, and buying those free agent years right before the last lockout. This is a very curious situation, and it seems to me that, when you look at the bigger picture, once again, the core group of players in Winnipeg, the lads, the Bufflins, the Littles, the so-called Atlanta Association, has taken it upon themselves to take an action that has affected the franchise, affected the coach, and handcuffed the GM, much like what's rumored to have gone on with the dismissal and the tuning out and subsequent dismissal of Claude Noel last year. This is not a good sign for the franchise in a lot of ways, and how Chevy cleans this up is going to be very interesting. There are quotes from Jets players today saying Kane would absolutely be welcome back in the locker room.
Right.
There are quotes from several Jets players saying you guys have no idea what goes on in the locker room behind closed doors.
Right.
So what we've heard through Chris Johnson is a very interesting snapshot of something many fans and media never really get to hear in a public sense, of an event between players that happened that has absolutely spilled out into the open, and we still don't have all the details.
And this is a small town. I mean, this is a small town, and as we talked about that before, this is not an easy thing for this. I mean, this whole city has already. It always felt like they were giving. I don't know if this is fair to say, but giving Evander Kane the benefit of the doubt, in a way, until now. Is that possible to say, Peter?
Absolutely. I think the fan base is very split. There are fans and media who love what he does on the ice, and there's fans and media who don't like who he is as a person, even though they don't really know him. They know of him.
Right.
If I made a list of every alleged Evander Kane infraction I've heard of, it'd be longer than your rumor list on for tracking. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
that's
And
what
that's just
this reminds
alleged.
me of Ottawa back in the day. You know, like when with the Ottawa. This the closest thing I can think of is the Ottawa situation with Spets and Emery, which was not something that was written about, but and no one knows how much of it was true. But it's just the whole craziness of everything running wild is where we are now. You know, that's the closest thing I can remember to this.
Yeah, it's gotten far too long with being managed properly. That's where a lot of people are at now.
Right.
How did this come to this point, and who let it get there? And I think as the local reporter and on TSN Gary Lawless wrote, there's plenty of blame to be spread around here.
Sure.
It's not just Coughlin's fault, Kane's fault, or Ladd's fault, or Maurice's. But the end of the line, we hit this point. Evander Kane led the team in hits, playing with an injured shoulder. He played 100% every night in terms of effort. You never said Kane was taking a night off.
Right.
Then his coach tried to protect him. It didn't work. But now everyone is basically alienating themselves from it. What is there left to do other than move him to a better situation for him and the team? And how Chevy is supposed to do that with an injured player out 4 to 6 months after going, on a low production year? It's a disaster.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin, what are your thoughts on this whole thing as it's playing out?
Well, it's. I think that analysis was right on the money. It's very complicated, right now. I spent the morning, and this is sort of part and parcel of being a journalist, working on the idea of, okay, what could they do if they traded him now? This is for the news. And, basically having talked to several general managers, the thought was they could get their best deal by trading him to a non-contending team. Because he's a $6 million cap hit. He just wouldn't fit in, and they're going to want to try to get back because their hold on their wild card spot is not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota are coming hard on the rail, and they've got to watch them. So they were going to be looking to try to get something back to help them now, preferably a scoring forward. So it was going to be difficult for them to trade him now had he not been injured. But their best deal can be made. The one disagreement I have is I do believe that his value will be strong in the summer. I surveyed the GMs this morning, and there is quite a bit of intrigue about Kane. There's a big belief that he could still be a 40-goal scorer. People still like him as a player. And basically what everyone brings up is the Tyler Seguin situation. They're similar and dissimilar at the same time. Tyler Seguin didn't have the locker room drama that we ended up with Evander Kane, but the Bruins had concern about him outside of the rink, and they moved him. And Tyler Seguin, for whatever reason, maybe the shock of being traded, the reminder that his that being a hockey player requires more than just performing on the ice, has been a terrific performer and has been the player that everyone thought he was going to be. So I think for that reason, I think this summer, in the long run, this injury, I think, provides Winnipeg the best opportunity to get the best return. They will do very well this summer, according to what GMs are telling me, and being able to trade him. Teams still want him. They still like him, and I think they think that he just needs to mature a little bit. And with regard to what happened in the dressing room, this is what I would say about that. That's sort of what happens in all dressing rooms, but it doesn't come out. Depends on the strength of the captain, and B, I think this was a case where players tried to police something that they didn't like. And it got out. But I guarantee you this happens, just like it happens, in all businesses where, you never see the politics behind the scenes. I'm sure for whatever reason the guys didn't like, the leadership group didn't like the way Kane was going about his business, and It's funny, but players like rules. They really do. I mean, they may grouse about them, but I think for the most part they like the uniformity. They're sort of team-oriented people, so they may say, "Hey, it's silly that we wear suits," but they like the fact that there's structure. And when someone doesn't abide by the structure that's been set down, they see him as a non-conformist, a non-team guy. So they took it upon themselves because it's an NHL hockey tradition that the captain in the room polices itself, and they did that. And we can argue about whether that was the right thing to do. Whether I don't know whether it's true or not, but if they threw his clothes in the shower, is that good leadership? Is that something Jonathan Taves' team would do? I think not. But we're only speculating because we don't really know what went on. But I think the bottom line is this: probably the best thing for the Winnipeg Jets right now is exactly what happened. Now it's over. We get to the summer. There's no distraction. No one's going to be calling Shovel Day off every day and saying that, are you going to trade him today? Are you going to get fair value for him? Fans aren't going to be able to go on talk shows and talk about that Kevin Shovel Day off. This will be the litmus test of his general managership. So for the time being, for a team that really needs to get in the playoffs, really needs to. If they don't get in, will Kevin Shovel Day off even be the guy who trades him next summer? I don't think that's a guarantee at this point. So I think for all of that, to get it behind him and to concentrate on the playoffs, this is probably the best thing is for him to go on the shelf.
All right, Peter, I wanted you to respond. I also want to set up a couple other things too. I want your thoughts on Seguin, the comparisons to Seguin as well after this, and Mike also touched base on Toronto and Buffalo and all the stuff that's been coming out today about, like Kevin said earlier, maybe if they're going to do something now, they should do it to maybe a non-contending team. But Peter, what's your response to the stuff that Kevin said?
I think Kevin's probably bang on there, and I'm glad that someone's gone around and talked to some GMs, as we've heard that sort of floating around, but other GMs are saying, okay, we'll take a look at this guy, and we're not too worried about it. The one thing is that if you have a bidding war of low value, you'll drive the value and the return up. And I think Kevin's basically alluded to that. And there is some aspects of saying, like, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. The distraction's gone. We'll worry about this later. And I think there's some benefit to that. The interesting, Kevin, that you brought in the idea of would Jonathan Toews do that? Well, both Ladd and Byfuglien come from a Jonathan Toews type leadership situation as they played with him and went through some stuff with another teammate of Jonathan Toews's who was going through a maturity process, another Kane, being Patrick Kane. And I think it's an interesting scenario there, and I wonder if there is some learned lessons with those two players about leadership, accountability with younger players. Can Chevy get a good return for Kane? I think he can. The question that fans, I think, here are asking is, we're now asking a GM to really make his first major trade, and the stakes are incredibly high now. That is the point that I think everyone's nervous about. And I've written about this before. When it was going to happen, the longer he waited to do something like this, to address the needs of the team with the assets he's had, the stakes became higher. Now he's in a poker game and he's holding an ace, but he doesn't know what's on the river yet. And hopefully he's got he's got some luck here, and he knows how to bluff someone out of some good assets. And he can do it in the summer when he's not worried about the stretch run.
Yeah.
Kevin, I think you brought up a very good point too also, and I'll wrap up here really quick, is if this backfires, does Chevy have to take some heat for it, and how big a heat is that? The interesting thing about the Jets organization is Chevy's boss, the one he answers to, is the owner. It's not like some of the other organizations where you have a president figure who reports to the owner and sort of oversees the operation. Chevy is the president and the GM. And I'm curious if Mark Chipman, who is the acting governor and the manager of the team, not David Thompson, wants to pull the trigger like that is fast. The coincidental thing, and I'll finish here, is both Kevin Cheveldayoff's current contract and Paul Maurice's expire at the same time. So if there's a change coming, maybe Mark Chipman will want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and do it all at once. I think that would be his preference, but we'll never know.
Coach Paul Maurice has been fantastic for them, and that's the argument. That's the tough thing about that to me. Like that, I mean, at least from the outside looking in, he is. I mean, the difference between the pre-Paul Maurice and the post-Paul Maurice is night and day, right, in Winnipeg. So, where Cheveldaev, you can argue a bunch of different ways. I mean, one, you can sit there and say, okay, he has been patient, and this team has flourished, and they're better than they've ever been, and they're improving. And you can see this and patience is really rare in the NHL. So we sort of look at it like it's terrible, but maybe he did the right thing by letting these guys develop. Such a tough call, but at the same time, you'd really want to see more from him as well. Now, Ty, as I'm sitting there, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you remember Jeff Carter and Mike Richards? So yeah, there's another scenario here that really is very similar, and Now, before we get to Seguin, with Carter and Richards, it was another situation where there was stuff very similar to what's going on with Evander Kane, but no one knew about it, and the Flyers managed to move him before it got out. And that was the big thing. The Flyers managed to make that happen quickly, and they acted swiftly, and they're like, we're going to make this happen now. And they got a lot for Richards and Carter. It got a lot for them. They did really well. At the end of the day, they did really well. Ty, what are your thoughts as far as Seguin goes? And do you see the comparisons? Did you think Seguin had to go at the time he went?
So I look at the Evander Kane situation and the Tyler Seguin situation, and while they're similar, it just feels that more of what's going on has come out than in Boston. With Chara, with Recchi, and a lot of the guys they had. Any of the issues that Seguin may have had. They never really came out until he was finally out of town. And that was really after, the reports. I had one person tell me that they had the Bruins captaincy sort of sit down with him and try to figure something out where they could keep him. And they walked away from that conversation saying he's not going to get it. So it's kind of one of those things where you didn't hear about the horror stories until he was gone. You saw pictures, people had, the age of social media, everyone has everything now.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's impossible to hide this stuff. That was true with Carter and Richards, too. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff around.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and one thing I think for Kane is that, it just feels like he's lost the support of his teammates in a way. You listen to Blake Wheeler yesterday. Wheeler talks about how, well, if he doesn't like it, he can go, there are other places he can play. And that's the first time I think, you've kind of heard, they need Kane to be better, they need Kane to be this. That was the first time that they kind of said, well, if you don't like it, you can leave. And that just kind of shows, I think, the breaking point that they're at with Evander Kane. Now, the Bruins, and as far as the public eye, they never got that far with Seguin. I talked to Peter Chiarelli at the draft in 2013, and he basically told me that they want Seguin to grow up. They said that it's time for him to mature, he's going to have a big contract, all this stuff. But they never said, well, he can leave if he doesn't like it. And that's really sort of, I think, a damning thing to say to a player. And how, if you're Evander Kane, how on earth can you show your face in that room again, knowing that these guys basically didn't hold back when they were asked about you, and they said what they wanted to say, and they bit their tongue before, but it just looks like they're sick of doing that. And that's what makes that situation very different from the Seguin one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And I've been at this a while, and there haven't been any instances that I could come up with where the players have really kind of turned their back. Usually they would say nothing, but in this case, some of them actually said, that we need him to be better behaved or leave.
There was some Brizgalov stuff in Philly.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but I'm trying to remember players actually publicly saying stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually think it's a good thing when the players sort of police themselves. Again, I think we can debate whether or not that was the proper thing to do, to throw a guy's clothes in the shower. Can you make that point? Ty just said, they sat down with Tyler Seguin. I think that's probably the best way to handle that situation. But maybe they've done that in Winnipeg. We'll never know.
This is the thing that I think people are, maybe Peter touched on it and I didn't hear it. This is something that was avoidable if they would have just made the deal last summer. Everybody knew that Evander Kane did not want to be in Winnipeg, and Kevin Cheveldaev, should take a lot of heat in this instance for not making a deal. I mean, I understand they weren't in an enviable position, but you know what? They're not in an enviable position now because I don't think they're going to get they'll get good value. They won't get full value for Evander Kane, and this could have been avoided if they would have made the deal over the summer. This was a situation that did not lend itself to them getting the most out of Evander Kane, and Evander Kane being the best player that he could be in the NHL. So I blame Kevin Cheveldayoff for this.
The only problem with that kind of thinking is that always you're guessing when what a player's level of maturity is going to be in the following season. And I'm sure Cheveldayoff looked around and said, well, maybe Evander Kane, this is the year he takes that next step, in his maturity. And, if you're going to trade a guy every time there's a problem, you're going to be making trades left and right. I mean, there's always problems with younger players. So, Mike?
I'll grant that, Kevin. I'm just saying, it's the preponderance of things. I mean, the way he acts on social media, the whole thing with the money, and the number of other events that have happened with him. I mean, it just seems to me that it would be better for him to go someplace else where he wants to play, because it doesn't seem like he clearly does not want to play in Winnipeg.
But there's something about the social media thing I'm going to throw out there for a second. I think that there's no saying that if he was a Ranger, he wouldn't be doing the same thing he's doing on social media now. I think that it has nothing to do with him being a Winnipeg Jet. He's actually doing what he's acting like a star player is what he's doing, no matter where he plays. He's acting. Maybe he feels more need to do that in Winnipeg. I don't know, or because he's on the third line or whatever. But I don't think. I think some guys will just there's going to be a lot of social media stuff in the future, with players. It's when you look at the AHL, the NHL, I think 60% of the guys are on social media. But you go to the AHL and you go to college, and you're looking at 95% of them on social media. There's going to be a lot. It's amazing to me that teams aren't more proactive about teaching social media to players. They do it now more than they used to, but they're not. They don't do it well. I've talked to a couple teams about it. It's a real problem. So, I mean, what he did. They didn't teach him the language and the culture of the internet. You can't do things like that. And people will react the way they do, and that's an obvious thing. Kevin?
Yeah, well, I think they are attempting to do a better job of preparing players for everything hockey. I went to. We've talked about this before, but I was able to go this season the first time to the rookie orientation because I was actually on the media panel where they brought in 130 NHL rookies, and they had seminars on how to invest your money, how to deal with immigration if you're not an American, how to avoid some of the pitfalls. They had a seminar on alcoholism, on everything of that nature. So I'm guessing, even though I didn't see media, I'm guessing that either they had it, I didn't see it, or it's coming, because they've done a pretty good job of realizing that you're throwing these players into an environment where they go from making $40 a week in the OHL. I don't even know what it is now.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, it's a low amount of money, to suddenly having thousands and thousands or millions of dollars. And so I think they are trying to prepare them. But I agree with you. I mean, this social media is still in its infancy, and a lot of guys don't really appreciate the ramifications of it. Now, I know for the U.S. National Development Program, which in theory would be the top 40 American-born players, they have a pretty extensive orientation regarding social media. So I think some of the guys are getting it. But I still don't think people appreciate the fact that basically what that means is there are essentially 300 million reporters in the United States.
Yeah,
that's how many people there are who can use their cell phones to put you on Twitter. And I just had a great conversation with Sidney Crosby about social media, and what he told me about is he loves Twitter in terms of he loves getting the information, but for him it's a one-way street. He goes to get information, not to leave information. He does not participate other than he uses a name just to read hockey stories on it. And I think for the most part, if I was an agent, that's what I would be counseling my thing, is to use it as a one-way street, not a two-way street.
No, they should, for sure. And I mean, it wasn't that long ago that you would see a player in a bar and he wouldn't care if someone was taking his picture. But I have been in bars with players where you've seen them seen them freak out about someone taking their picture. That's a common thing now. That's only in the last couple of years, that's really changed around.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really what I've talked to players about it. What's changed is now is the players seek private rooms.
Yep.
And there's more house parties as opposed to being in public places. But it's still difficult for them because they do want to go out and enjoy themselves and interact with fans, and some of them enjoy that aspect of it. But it's like anything else, everything in moderation.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with being seen in the bar as long as you're behaving yourself.
Right. And don't take a picture with Buck Daddy, apparently. But just kidding. Sorry.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Pete, this is Peter. This is the last thing I'll let you before you let you go. My question is this. I guess the real question that everybody's wondering is how the Jets, like Kevin said, they're in the middle of a race. How they're going to respond to this. I mean, there is a way that this could actually turn into a positive for them. That this could turn into like a rallying cry of us versus them. We've seen before, and this could help. How do you think they'll react?
I think we've already rallied. I don't know if this is actually something that galvanizes the team more than they already are. They've been through a fair bit of injury adversity this year. This is kind of different. It doesn't mean we've got to step up to cover for so-and-so. This means it's over. And I think that's not a rallying point as much as it is a checkpoint of saying, okay, we made this happen. Now we have to figure out if we can survive beyond it. And that's kind of a different point of saying we've got to rise up and deal with this. This happened to us. It's not our fault, blah, blah, blah. It could. It might not. I would suspect if Chevy believes in this team, he's going to have to make a quick deal and get a left winger in here pretty quick. And if he can do that and not give up a lot, I think the team can rally if it's the right player and go forward. Really, the Jets have honestly gotten to where they are because of better than ever goaltending for them. And if Michael Hutchinson can step back in and be the goalie he was prior to this losing streak, they've got a chance. And I will finish up with one thing just about Kane because everyone's talking about it. One very interesting theory that started to float around is if you were to move Kane and you want to do it soon, maybe giving it to one of the bottom teams who have a chance at winning the McDavid-Eichel sweepstakes is a good move because they get Kane and he can't help them. And their chances of bailing out and being at the bottom are very good. And I'm wondering if some of those teams, a Carolina, a Buffalo, are giving Chevy that kind of heads up right now. It's a very interesting theory that started to come out. And I think they should explore it if it means helping now and into the long term.
Yeah.
Peter, a couple
Mike.
A couple reporters in Buffalo and Toronto basically said the same thing about an hour ago, that Buffalo has been interested in Kane, and this would be a perfect opportunity because they can bury the money on long-term injury and give Winnipeg somebody, a Matt Molson or somebody of that nature. I'm just throwing out that name. I'm not saying that that's rumored or anything like that. But Toronto, in that instance as well. I mean, they have a number of forwards that they'd like to move out who might help the Jets make the playoffs. A guy like Joffrey Lupul, the cap hits are exactly the same.
Yeah, that's what I could. I mean, Kevin.
Absolutely, I can play there. Go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's believed that Kevin Cheveldayoff was in Toronto or in Jersey recently scouting out either Winnick or Santorelli. And that could be the Band-Aid fix. The long-term fix, I don't know, Mike, though, if the Leafs need another scoring winger. If they can parlay that into something else, maybe. I don't think that's their big need. But someone like Carolina could. Buffalo, I think, is an interesting option. And, there could be a couple other teams. Phoenix has been, or Arizona has been mentioned, too. I mean,
yeah.
Anything's possible.
Yeah, I don't like any of those options for this reason. Like, I like the idea of, and I had worked that this morning, that would be better to trade to a non-contending team because you can get back help now. But the help now that you need to get, if you were trading him then, was in that lower age bracket. Like, trading Kane for Lupul makes no sense to me because you not only have to help yourself now, but you also have to try to help for the future. I mean, Kane is a young man whose best years are well in front of him, and some people believe still has a chance to be a 35 goal scorer. So, to me, if I was the owner of the team, what I would expect Cheveldayoff to be doing is to leave aside the Kane, knowing that I'm going to get good value in the summer for him. You know, that there's still a romance with his potential. So that's going to happen. You're going to get good value in the summer. I would use then draft picks and go out, and I'd be looking to try to get somebody. I don't see anybody on Buffalo that would intrigue me enough to make a trade for Evander Kane. I mean, Evander Kane is still a good asset. I'm convinced of that, having talked to the GM. So what I would do is I would just, instead of trying to move Kane for something that might help you now but isn't going to be valuable to you 3 years from now or 4 years from now, I would see it as two different moves. I would say, look, we're in a bind now. We need to get help now. And like every other team, I'm going to use prospects or draft picks, and I'm going to get this guy to bring in to help me now, and then I'll deal with Kane in the summer. I think that's the best course of action.
Yeah, I think that's the way they're going to get it. It makes the most sense, too. Moving on from Evander Kane, the last 20 minutes of our show here. That was good stuff, though. And thank you, Peter, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Welcome. I'll let you guys go. Have a great rest of the show.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks so much. Thanks for calling in. It was awesome, Peter jumped in. Henry Lundqvist, out a month.
The Rangers, by the way, are disputing that. So
they're disputing that, are they? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. This is from Larry. Oh, so this is Larry Brooks who says this, right? So.
Well, what Dave said is,
Go ahead.
according to my colleague who was reporting it this morning, is the Rangers have said we don't know how long he's going to be out. That we have not gotten that, medical information. So.
Okay, so that. Go ahead, Mike.
Guys, also the good news apparently circulating in New York right now is the fact that there is no nerve damage, there is no blood clot, there are no concussion symptoms. So if that is in fact true, he definitely dodged a bullet.
Yeah, well, let's go on the supposition that until we're proved otherwise that this report is accurate. I mean, maybe the Rangers are saying it's not that serious because the price immediately would go up on them getting a stopgap goaltender. If Lundqvist is out for a month. But I mean, a team like Buffalo with two unrestricted free agent goaltenders and Michael Neuwirth and be a perfect fit because I don't think either one of them would cost a ton for the Rangers in terms of adding a player.
Do you guys think Brodeur retired a little bit too early?
Yeah, that's the funny joke. I was thinking about that earlier too. Everybody thought my prediction, one of my crazy predictions at the beginning of the season is that we'd play with the Rangers this year. Yeah, so I just felt like this would eventually happen, but nope. I don't think so.
I don't know. 4 weeks is not enough to make a move for a goalie and for a team that has a tight, salary cap that may want to make a move close to the deadline. So I don't see that as a viable option, even if he's going to be out a month.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to remember, Cam Talbot's pretty good backup here.
Yeah.
He hasn't played poorly. I think he's been very well. He's played very well, actually. He looked great against Boston. He starts very sparingly, but again, he's a solid option back there. And I mean, do you want to throw Mackenzie Skapski or whatever his name is out there? 5-6 times? Probably not. But I think you could ride Talbot for the next 4 weeks, and you'd be okay because his workload is never that large to begin with.
Well, and I will also point out that the Red Wings have used their number 3 goalie while Howard has been out because Gustafsson is hurt, and he's 8-2. So you can limp along for a while with your backup goalie, and even the famous, if not infamous, because of that. Carter Hutton, was he 3-2-2 or?
Yeah, he wasn't bad at all.
Yeah, so
He wasn't bad at all, and probably should have played him last night against Anaheim. But that's besides the point. I'm just kidding. He was
But, I didn't see that game. Was there rust on our good friend Pekka Rinne?
a little bit early, but then he made some unbelievable saves as the game went on, and there were some you could tell that he would be a little bit early, But then the Predators took that game over in the second two periods. I mean, especially in the third period, and they ended up almost doubling the Ducks up in shots. So the Preds can get a lot of shots. That team really manages more than ever before to pound shots at people. They almost came. I mean, they made it before nothing going in the third. They got two in the. It's hard to come back on 4 goals against the Anaheim Ducks. They got 2, and they made it a little bit interesting for a little bit there. But
I want to throw out something for the panel to discuss here because it's just not based on anything other than the observation, but I think one of the teams that I think could use a goalie, and we haven't really talked about it, that I think the goaltending has hurt that team, and that is the Dallas Stars. I'm not so sure the Stars wouldn't be 6 points up in the standings if Lettinen had been better this season. He had sort of kind of come into his own in Dallas, and seemed to be a different goalie than he was in Atlanta. He's gotten over the injury problems, but I've watched that team this season, even down the stretch, and he hasn't won any games for them, and he gives up soft goals, and when they've been successful and they've clawed their way back in the race, but it's not been because of him, from what I've been able to ascertain. So I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Does anyone else think that the Stars may need a goalie?
I've been thinking this for a while. I mean, especially they really lost a lot of points from their backup earlier in the year too. They had a ton of problems. Lindback was really struggled there, which was surprising because I always liked Lindback, but he really struggled there.
And Jussi Rinas, who's their number 3 goaltender, is a goalie who used to be in the Leafs system, and I don't think he's an NHL goaltender. I mean, the thing I've always had a problem with Lettinen is and he hasn't had as much of this problem the last couple years has been his durability. He's had injury problems, and this year it's not injuries, it's more just the fact that he's been inconsistent. It seems like him and Mike Smith in Arizona have sort of wavered from the good year that they had last year, and I think they're both teams have suffered dramatically because of that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I've been trying to think who the Dallas Stars would go after. What kind of goalie they would go for.
Varlamov?
No. Varlamov's playing a little bit better, right? But he's also
has been good. I actually did some checking on that since we talked, and I was told by people that really matter that he has been good for the last 9 games. So
yeah, he's been improving, and that as the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, they've come on strong, so they're coming up fast. What are your thoughts, Ty?
When I look at the goaltending situation there, you kind of look around the league and try to figure out what sorry, an ad came up there. You try to see what's out there. Their third goaltenders, in Colorado, and even a team like the Islanders, Kevin Poulin, he doesn't want to be in the minors. So does the team take a flyer on him for a 6th-round pick, whatever it could be. But you kind of look around. I think the Avalanche have to do something with Red O'Bara or Calvin Pickard, because I think Pickard's proven that he's much better in a way than Barra. So maybe that's the guy that could get moved. Victor Foths, I mean, we're talking Edmonton that wants to tank once again. So there are options out there. I think you have to look at teams that kind of have this logjam of sorts, where they have a guy who's either toiling in the minors that doesn't want to be there, who can be had for almost nothing, or these backups on these tanking teams. And I think I think everyone kind of forgets about that. You do have the AHL as a resource as well if you need a quick fix, because I think the playoffs in Dallas will still go through Lettinen. For right now, for better or worse, he's going to be the guy this year, I think, for at least one more season. And
right.
I think he'll take it from there after. But I mean, they just need a cheap fix. That's a lot what these teams need: cheap fixes that can just they won't sink your ship. You can take on a bit of water, but you'll still be able to get to the playoffs and depend on the guy that you planned on doing, in October.
Not to make everything Toronto, but I mean,
No,
there
feel
had
free,
been some,
Mike. Feel free.
there had been some speculation over the last week or so. Is Jonathan Bernier the number one? The guy who this team can go with going forward? Is he a number one goaltender? Apparently, the Leafs still have a lot of confidence in him, but that confidence means that James Reimer is essentially the backup, and then they won't say that he's the backup, but I believe that Reimer will be dealt over the summer. But if there's an opportunity with a team that needs a goaltender, Reimer is
Actually,
inexpensive.
of all
and
the
I think
options, that might be the best that I've heard. Kev, what are your thoughts on that? Reimer would be a good one.
Yeah, no, it is. What's his money this season, Mike?
2.3.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, even for the short term, whether he would be.
Yeah. I mean, he's played he's played before big games. He's shown he can play. I mean, he was just supplanted by Bernier, but really didn't lose his job necessarily.
And he's dying for a change of scenery. He
And
just
he
needs
needs to change the scenery. I mean, and he could be a good player for someone else.
Yeah, he is a good kid. He's a good guy. The fan base in Toronto does not blame him, although for the failings of this team. I think it would really be good for his career going forward to get a new chance someplace else. And if it's a place like Dallas or any other team that needs a goaltender, like Minnesota, I had heard his name tied to Minnesota. But how many more goaltenders can they take on? What do they have, 5 right now?
Yeah.
Well, the guy, for the long term, the guy that'll be out there that'll be interesting in the summer, obviously, is Niemi, who is not a spectacular goalie, but I had a conversation with the GM about him, and I asked what his assessment of it. He goes, the read on Niemi is he's consistent.
Yep.
And that you know what you're going to get. There's no up and down, and for a lot of teams, consistent is pretty desirable.
That's what you need. I mean, that's what these teams are looking for. You know what Niemi does better than most, and Bobrovsky does this really well too, is know when to hold him, so to speak. Like Niemi is very good at freezing the puck, and he'll freeze the puck at an incredible amount of times, and so will Bobrovsky. That'll just make you insane. But with the defense that's running around like Dallas has been on occasion, that's a good thing, and that was a really good thing early on in Chicago when the defense was still, they were all more offensive and were still working on their defensive aspects of the game. That was why Niemi, I always thought, worked in Chicago. He just freezes the puck a ton, and that could play pretty well in Dallas right now.
No, I would agree. I mean, Dallas is an interesting team. Because they've got Sagan and Jamie Benn, and we haven't said his name in a long time, but Nikushkin is still a real valuable player there, and he'll actually be back before the end of the season.
Right.
And we were all expecting great things from him, this season. So if he comes back, I mean, he's obviously going to have some rust, and he's young to begin with, but that'll help him. I think that race at the bottom of the West is still going to be fun. I watched Colorado. The one thing that surprised me last night watching Colorado, because I hadn't seen them in probably 2 or 3 weeks, is how passive they are. There was hardly any forecheck last night. It was almost like they were sitting back and saying, look, our defense is not as strong as we would like it to be, so we're going to drop our forwards back, and we're not going to push the way you would expect they would push with guys like Duchesne and McKinnon, because they obviously have the speed. And I was surprised that they weren't more aggressive, last night. But Varlamov, as I said, has been more consistent, and I think they're pretty happy with the way things are going.
Well, I watched a sizable chunk of the Tampa-Dallas game last night, and the thing was, Dallas's weakness has always been, at least it's perceived that their weakness has been on the blue line. And guys like Trevor Daley and Klingberg played pretty well last night, but they still, I think, need that minutes-eating veteran defenseman. And I don't know where, it'll be something that they can solve in the offseason, but in the short term, all these teams in the Western Conference, Colorado, LA, Dallas, all of them that are on the outside looking in, they all need to add that one defenseman. And guys like Mathot, guys like Cody Franzen, Mike Green, if Washington moves them, these are going to be the guys that those teams, if they want to make a short-term ad, I think they're going to be gunning for those 3 guys.
Yeah, I think you'll see.
By the way, the latest news on Mike Green is that he's not available now. Now, I know this has been up and down, up and down. But now we're getting close enough to where I think when the team was the GM McClellan told the Washington Post that they're not going to trade him, and he said it on the record, and that's it sounds like they're serious about it now. I've talked to teams who've said they thought he was available, then they were told he wasn't available, and then they thought he was. So we'll see.
The GMs of Ottawa, Toronto, and Edmonton will be very happy to hear that, Kevin, because then they can raise their prices accordingly on their pending free agents.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to bring up, I talked to another GM about Jeff Petrie, who's a guy that I like, and he is not high on him whatsoever. And he said that he's watched him, he went in to watch him, and said that he doesn't think that he can help him. He's not the guy he's looking for. Which really kind of surprised me.
Yeah, he's a very polarizing player. I've talked to a couple people who have said the same thing, and then I've talked to some people who have said, that they really think he's just impossible to tell, like I've said before, because he's been on Edmonton.
Right.
But but there's definitely a group of people who see him as a little bit soft, a little bit, I don't want to say not too smart, but I'll say just not in his own zone. Just the way he moves the puck. A couple people don't like his outlet passes. I've heard different opinions on him from different people.
He's more of a fit for a team that's looking to add a bottom pairing guy. I don't think he's a top 4 guy. Whereas I think Mathot, who's has played with Carlson, and Franzen, who's played on the top pairing with the Leafs, they fit more into a top 4 role for some team in a short term ad. So that's
right. And all this if Myers isn't on the market too, Yandel gets bigger, as far as possibilities go too. So I think there's a whole bunch of backload here. What do you have, Josh, for us today?
Lots of news, guys. Lots of stuff to talk about. First of all, interesting article came out here in the last hour or so. On January 26th, the New York Islanders revealed that Kyle Okposo would miss 6 to 8 weeks with a upper body injury. Now, a report surfaced earlier this week that the injury in question was actually a torn retina. Now, what still wasn't clear was when or how he sustained the injury. No one really knows. As it turns out, he had been playing through the issue. According to Newsday, Okposo was reportedly even dealing with it on January 16th when he scored 4 goals in one game. He was having eye issues, and he was able to score 4 goals. Now, eventually, Okposo went to see the eye doctor to make sure he wasn't dealing with anything serious, and presumably at that point that he had discovered the full extent of the damage. And then he underwent surgery as a result. But that's crazy, guys. 4 goals with one eye.
That's pretty good. That's not too bad. Not too bad. Maybe you shouldn't have gone to the doctor.
Yeah. Tweet this morning from Renaud Lavoie of TVA Sports.
Yeah, I saw this. I'll talk about this.
Talks intensify between Ducks and Sabres on Tyler Myers. Other teams of interest in Myers. Can he be traded? ? It's a real possibility.
Yeah, I mean the Ducks are one of these, but then he also went on to say Cam Fowler would be the player that he thought was involved in that, and I do not buy.
What's the point? It's 6 of one, half of the other.
I agree with that. With Fowler, you know what you have. Plus, he's named Fowler. He should be a Duck. Come on, it's never made any sense. But yeah.
Other stuff going on, guys. We've talked about injuries on the blue line for some teams this year, like the Winnipeg Jets when they went through that terrible spell of losing all their guys on the blue line. Well, Tampa Bay now is having issues on the blue line. We've seen Hedman's been off and on day to day throughout the last month or two. They've lost Matt Carl for a good long time, Radko Gudas as well. But now the concern is in Tampa with Jason Garrison, who's the latest to suffer an ailment. Brian Burns of the Lightning's website reports that he won't return after suffering a lower body injury against the Dallas Stars tonight, and there's no timetable on his return. So another bit of a blow on the blue line in Tampa. Can we hear Tyler Myers' name maybe in Tampa soon?
No.
I don't know. We could hear Chemo Timonen.
Yeah.
Not to jump on probably another story, but Chemo's back. Skated today with the team. Skated today on his own. I shouldn't say with the team. Skated today on his own. Apparently completely healthy. Still has these blood clots, which are apparently never going to go away, but not dangerous. in his legs that he's had for years, and he's played through them before. But last night when he talked to the media, you didn't get the impression that he would. He didn't come out and say, no, I'm a Flyer and I'm always going to be. It really was not the impression that you were. I was sort of expecting. I knew it would go one way or the other. I either thought Kimo would come out and say, listen, my family wants to be here. I'm staying here. This is where I'm at in my career. I didn't get that. Didn't happen. So for what it's worth, I think that he's got a little while to go, but he might. Although the Flyers are playing better, and he his hope is obviously that the team could make a run, but
it doesn't strike me like that they do trade him that they're going to get a big windfall from Kimmo Timonen with his health being in such a questionable state. I mean,
depends how he looks over the next couple of weeks, right? I mean, if Kimmo is healthy, Kevin, what are your thoughts? He's a pretty valuable player again.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the ability to show that he can still do it, that's the key.
Yeah.
You need some body of work that everybody can watch and get your pro scouts. I mean, it's so funny, I always say this all the time, that the world revolves around the pro scouts. These guys who come in and they all line up. There's usually 20 of them at a game, and by the late in the third period, they're all gone. But they come in and they size up all these players, and then multi-million-dollar deals are made based on their evaluations. So.
Yep, and they drive usually in there
traffic
games, and they're driving up and down the coast, staying. They're fascinating to talk to at the media meals. I love talking to pro scouts at the media meals. They're just the guys who are just like, where are you going out tonight? I got to Hershey, then I'll be back here, then I'll be dead, then I'll go up to Wilkes-Barre, then I'll be back here, then I'll be. They have their every day, and they're just driving around doing it.
Yeah, it's a crazy lifestyle, and you think, well, all they do is watch the games, but you got to file the reports, and there's discussions with the scouting director. And they're on the road like it's not a 5-day-a-week job. It's 7 days a week, and you're going to a game every night. There's always somebody to see. And it's a complicated profession.
Oh yeah, and it's funny how little they know about the overall team strategy sometimes too. They'll tell you flat out. They're like, well, I'd love to give you information, but I honestly don't. All I'm being told is to look at this player and that player, but they don't really know why, and they don't know what.
It depends on the scout and on the GM, and
I'm sure.
Some more than others. So.
At a recent AHL game, I won't say the name of the team or the name of the scout, but I saw a scout from an Eastern Conference team watching an AHL game, and you could tell he was watching one particular player because for half the game he was either getting coffee or talking or whatever, but he would only concentrate when a certain player was on the ice. So he was there for that one specific player and not for scouting the entire team. So that their focus is very it is on one or two things at the most.
That definitely happens a lot. I mean, Marty Brodeur was in Philly to scout the Flyers and the Maple Leafs. Just a couple days after he becomes the Blues assistant GM, he was sitting right behind us. So yeah, he's there. That's always fascinating. What else, Josh? Anything else?
A few things, guys. First of all, in Minnesota, Matt Cook, sports hernia surgery today. He's out 5 to 6 weeks. That's according to. Sorry?
No, never mind.
Oh, that's according to Coach Yo. Also in Chicago, good news. Chris Versteeg likely to return. I know that sounds funny that I'm saying good news for Chicago, but you know what? Versteeg's played well with Patrick Kane this year, and a little bit of a blow when he broke his finger and has been out for the past few weeks. Definitely a shot in the arm for the Blackhawks as Versteeg and Patrick Kane were showing pretty good chemistry this year. In New Jersey, Michael Ryder will be a healthy scratch tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He was scratched twice when Coach DeBoer was in New Jersey coaching the Devils. Now being scratched with the new regime, with the new guys behind the bench, Scott Stevens, Adam Oates. It makes you wonder, will Michael Ryder, for his second time this year, ask to be traded? Could happen, because he doesn't like to be scratched.
Not with the 10-foot pole, my friend.
Yeah.
Maybe the Bruins want him back there, Ty.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, Cam Neely said yesterday that they're still looking at upgrades on that right side, even with David Pastrnak in town. Ryder has familiarity, with the team and with David Krejci. So that could be a fit. I mean, price can be the biggest thing. Devils will have to eat some of that money, and whether or not they're willing to, we'll see.
Yeah.
Last one for you guys. I want to point out how serious is the NHL about adding Las Vegas to the league? Well, how about this? NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman will be in Las Vegas on Tuesday at the press conference that's being held by the ownership group in Las Vegas, the Foley Group, to officially launch a season ticket deposit campaign. So Bettman will be in Las Vegas on Tuesday.
Be interesting to see how he plays that off, because every time he's been asked about this, he's always been like, well, you know, we're doing this, but, you know, that doesn't mean anything. And we're doing this, but that doesn't mean anything. And we're doing this, but, you know, that really doesn't mean anything either. And this might never actually happen, but we're doing this, and, yeah, at some point.
I think it's going to happen.
Something means something. But, you know, and if he goes there, he's going to be, if he's going to take questions at all, then he's going to have to, which I'm sure he is, because he wouldn't go there to not take questions.
They want what, 4 teams? I say you only need 2. Do Las Vegas, do Seattle. Make it 16 and 16, because that's ridiculous. I think still.
Seattle, there's no arena. So
I know. I mean, I just think that that's a market that you've seen it with the the fans are crazy about the MLS there. So I think hockey would definitely work. They need, but that's the thing, is they need an arena. You know,
Las Vegas.
I think they're with you, Ty. They want to go to Seattle, but they won't go without an arena. They've said that. So
I think
Las Vegas
has everything to do with the NBA team, from what I was told in Seattle. The NBA team, if they get an NBA team back, then the NHL team, and that obviously means an arena gets built and all that stuff. So
Las Vegas and Quebec, and then move Detroit back to the Western Conference.
Never happened.
no,
they did their time. You would have an easier time moving Pittsburgh to the Western Conference than you'd have moving Detroit to the Western Conference at this point. And that would not be easy either. That would not happen either. But
I know. I'm just kidding.
Poor Columbus could end up in it. I'm just kidding.
Let's do the draft simulator, because I think
draft simulator, we got to get out of here.
The day that Buffalo wins.
Yes. So far, we have 2 winners with the draft simulator.
Columbus.
Our winner for today, and it is not the Buffalo Sabres. It is the Ottawa Senators.
Wow. That's crazy.
Don't like that one.
Connor McDavid to Ottawa. This, like you said, Kevin, this would be great for Ottawa. This would be tremendous. You know, he'd be in Canada, and I think it would really help that franchise. That would be good. Wow.
Toronto's part of Canada too.
Yes, so far, Toronto, and wow, that's crazy. That's all the time we have, guys. We got to get out of here. But thanks so much for joining us this week. Thank you, Ty. As always, great to have you on Fridays. And make sure you check out Kevin at USA Today. Lots of good stuff coming up. I like the Blues article, Kev. That was really cool.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good stuff. If you on why we should be paying attention to the St. Louis Blues, definitely check that out. And remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Talk to you then.